and welcome back to the channel. Today I just have a quick video for you, little tutorial. I've had a lot of people asking how I make a seamless carousel on Instagram, and they didn't ask it quite like that. I actually just found out that Instagram's multi-post accessibility is actually called a carousel. So when you're scrolling through and you see a post you like, and then you can actually swipe right or swipe to the left. Yeah, swipe to the left on that post, you see more parts of that post. You see this often with panoramas and portrait photographers. So oftentimes when people want to kind of show details of a photo that they created, you can swipe and you'll see a closer up kind of crop of that. And then when you swipe again, that seam in between those pieces will be practically non-existent unless there's some loading delay. And then with panoramas, obviously you see part of a landscape, or in my case what I specialize in the most, a mural, and when you swipe on that mural or that landscape, it just continues that photo all the way across. So what I'm going to teach today are the methods on creating your own seamless carousels for Instagram using Photoshop. So the first thing I'd like to preface is that there are three formats of posting on Instagram. And you all know this. There's the vertical, your 4:5 crop. There's your standard classic Instagram 1:1 crop, that's a square. And then you have your horizontal, 16:9, I believe. This will be very important for formatting how you crop your individual pieces so that you have a seamless carousel. So before we get into editing, let's just take a look at some of these examples. If you go to my page on Instagram, then you will see my most recent post, this graffiti post here. What's interesting about this one is I have some just individual images that are 16:9, and as you swipe, then you get across to these images here where you now have a seamless transition within this series of photos to show that one wall, and then we're back to individuals. Another example of just doing the square crops would be this image here. That is just this one image, this one panorama, and that's it right there. And then an example that you oftentimes seen with portrait photographers would be one such as this right here. Awesome model that I met at Chris's meetup. This whole event was actually featured in vlog episode 3. So check that out if you haven't seen it. There's a link up here. So if you swipe here, you'll see I've got a close-up now. And doing this allows you to see the touch of purple in the eyes and the quality of the gloss in the lips and the skin tone coming out that you can't really pick up on Instagram. You can kind of see it when you zoom in, but having this seamless transition as a swipeable post lets me kind of show those details a little bit easier. So what's important about these different dimensions is that if you are just doing a panorama and you're not mixing it with any other posts, it's very easy and simple to get away with doing a square crop. Most apps that you can find in the App Store that will help you create these seamless posts, they all go by a 1:1 crop. And that's great if you just need a quick post like this with the wall. Very easy, quick to do. However, if you're trying to do a multi-post with an image that's already formatted, for instance, the one we were looking at with these graffiti posts, I wanted to share the individual posts as well, but as you can see, it's a 16:9. It's not a square crop. So a standard app would not allow me to create a multi-post or seamless carousel to mix in with this other post. So now I have to do the carousel effect with the 16:9 crop. So that's why it's important to understand these dimensions. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this in Photoshop, and I'll give you kind of a walkthrough of all three of these examples. And keep in mind that it's always easy and very convenient to go ahead with a app out of the App Store. However, when you are using these apps, generally you are gonna lose a bit of quality because it compresses those image files in order to create the pieces for you. And you don't have as much control over how the image is being formatted in the overall carousel. So if you have Photoshop, it's a great tool and you can really maintain the quality of your images and get a lot of fine tuning in the way that it fits into the carousel. And I have done this with Lightroom as well. If you don't have Photoshop and you want to see how to do a lot of these using Lightroom, comment down below, let me know that that's more of your forte, and I'll see if I can get a video together in the future just focused on Lightroom. But for now, let's jump into Photoshop. So right here we have your basic panorama of a wall, and we're going to post this today. So if you like this video, if I helped you in this video, really appreciate you not only like this video on YouTube, but please go over to the Instagram, maybe leave a comment on what you thought of the video on the Instagram post. It would help me out a lot. But let's get this going. So we have the panorama here. Now the first thing you're going to do is check your resolution, your image size. So this is at 300. 300 resolution is great for your printing and general presentation like that. However, for digital, you don't need anything larger than 72. We're not going to change that yet. I like to get everything done in the high resolution first, and then export or save the intended files for Instagram at the new resolution or the downsized resolution, just because I like to maintain as much quality as possible until the very last minute. So we'll keep it at 300 for now, but don't forget, when you export or save for Instagram or anything digital, website, what have you, make sure that you drop it down to 72. The load speed is going to be a lot faster for the file, and you'll be able to upload more easily because there's less data that's unnecessary, and you will actually maintain quality in your image when you post it, because the program, be it Instagram, Facebook, or whatever you use to design your website, isn't having to compress the data for the presentation. It can just load it, and when apps actually compress your files, they may not be compressing them in the best way to maintain the details that you want maintained. So that's a little side note, but we'll keep this at 300. And the first step from here would be to decide how many sections, segments, pieces you will need or want for your carousel. The easiest way to get into this is coming to your ratio. Now your height is always going to be 1. And if you're doing a 1x1 for a single post, single piece, there you have it right here. So this is basically kind of a guide for where each piece will match up. From here we can slowly go up on the width, which will be the first bit. So now this is going to give you 2 pieces because we're up by 1x2. Your width is now twice as long. It's going to give you 2 pieces worth of space for your carousel. Let's go up to 4. 4 is looking a lot better. It's still cutting the edges just a bit, so let's go ahead and go up to 5. Now that's looking nice. I would kind of prefer a little bit more sky, a little bit more around the mural. So when you're looking at the post, because this is a wall, I personally prefer to have a little bit of the environment around the wall, so it doesn't feel like just a print or a graphic. I like to really showcase that it's a wall. And in that regard, I like to have a little bit more space on the top and or bottom to show that environment. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and commit to this crop, but I would like to add a little bit of space on the top. That should be okay. So we're gonna go ahead and use this. Now by using the ratio crop tool, what you can guarantee is that your 1x1 sections will add up to exactly how you've laid it out on the screen. Now the issue right now is that we have this empty space on the side. So what I'm going to do is a little trick that I learned from Visuals of Julius. His tutorials are amazing for Photoshop and learning Photoshop. He mostly works with landscape stuff. So this easy way of stretching the proportion of your image, I'm going to transform, Control T, hold Shift to maintain the height, and I'm just going to bring this out to fill in that space. Now because it's not the artwork and we're moving it so minimally, it still feels pretty natural. You can see if we zoom in here, it's it's not too bad. And I'm actually gonna make sure we get it all the way past that edge so there's no awkward space when we post. Deselect that there, and then come over to the other side, do the same thing here. And because I'm bringing this selection just up to the edge of the actual artwork, we're not distorting the artwork, and we're just getting the image to fit the proportions that we need to actually pull off this presentation on Instagram. So there we go. From here, all we need to do is create our actual sections that we're going to save. And to do that, what I like to do, just to be sure and safe, is create a new document that is exactly a 1:1 ratio. We're working at 300, so just to make that work, I'll go ahead and make this the same. Create our little box. I'm gonna drag this over to our project, drop it on top. Yes, that's fine. And this is just a placeholder. Okay, so this should be good. Now from here, what we will do is set a marker, move it over, set another marker, and now we're marking where we need to crop the image to get exactly the right alignment for all of our pieces. So from here, we need to go into our crop, go ahead and do our 1:1 square, and just start cropping. So what's actually happening, I'll go ahead and explain this. Photoshop has an option here at the top that says delete cropped pixels. If you crop without that box checked, then when you go back to any crop settings, the elements from your image that you originally cropped out will still be there. So right now we're seeing the excess on the top and the bottom that we originally cropped out that we don't want. So if this is your method, you might want to check that box just so you don't get confused. But because I went ahead and extended the edges, it gives us this little bit of leeway where you can tell exactly where the image stops in the height in the bottom. So I'm just using that to guide. We could go ahead and snap a couple guides here just to be safe. But this is going to be our first piece. Go ahead and make that selection. And we're going to save this, go into the folder we created. Make sure this is on JPEG. And then we're going to just add part 1 so that we know which piece is which for the carousel. Hit save. Because we're at 72, there's a good chance that we don't have to worry about this being a large file. We've already compressed it, so it should be fine. Another thing to sometimes pay attention to, go ahead and drop into 8 bits here. Not necessarily something you have to do. Let's just do it anyway for good measure. Replace this. See 1.2, plenty of room to grow. And this should guarantee that Instagram will not be creating any compression on the file, which means we'll have a nice, sharp, and crispy, textured post. Undo our crop, move over to the second piece, and then repeat. Alright, and that's it. Save those 5 pieces, email them, or upload them to Google Drive, or whatever file sharing you use to get things from your phone to your computer. Upload them, download to your phone, jump into Instagram, make your post, select multiple, do it in the right order, and you're good to go. That's it. So let's go ahead and move on to a little bit more complicated version, which, let's start with the portrait. Okay. So here we go, we have this portrait. Let's check the size. So we're at 300. For this one, you can actually do this in Lightroom very easily. However, what's complicated is we can't just run by our classic 1x1 because it doesn't fit the 5x4. We need each piece of the carousel to look like this, but if you're doing the 1x1, you can see how there's the top and the bottom cropped. So if you go into Instagram and you try and combine this square crop with the original 4x5 that we want to post, then the square crop is going to get zoomed in even further to fill the frame, the 4x5 frame. So what we actually want is to have our new crop to be 2 4x5s next to each other instead of 2 1x1s. Let me show you what I mean. So the image is actually a 5x4, 4x5, right? And we want 2 of these. So we need to double the width. The same thing goes for the 1x1. When you want, say, 3 pieces rather, then you want it to be 1x3, right? So same thing here, you're gonna double the width. Since the width is 4, instead of a 4x5, we want an 8x5. So now you can see how we have this more elongated width of a post. We can go ahead and get our main crop how we want, and I like her eyes almost in the middle, still capturing some of the details of the headdress, the hat. Right about there looks good to me. So we're gonna go with this crop here, and this is gonna be 2 posts. So what's easy about this is we can go ahead and snap our grid to the center here, and these will be our 2 posts. So now we can go back and do our 4x5 again. Just drop the guide down just to play it safe. Drop over to this one side. Go ahead and crop. Check your image settings. Make sure it's 72. The width of 1080. Okay. Make sure the mode is in 8. We'll save this. Now we'll undo what we did. Move it over to the other side. Crop. Double check your settings. Change the size. Save this as part 2. Now we can go back to our original image. Check the size on this, size it down, make it the same proportions. Hit OK. And then we will save that as our main portrait. Boom. So now you can post your main photo, which will be the 4x5, which takes up more real estate on the Instagram page instead of the 1x1. And when you swipe, you'll still get your dual seamless carousel element where you can have the close-up detail that also fits that full vertical space. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was informative. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you'd like to see more tutorials in the future, like, subscribe. Definitely let me know in the comments what you would like me to talk about. I'm happy to get into these styles of video. It's definitely new to me. Like and follow on the Instagram. Check out the info down below. What else? If there's anything about this method or this technique or whatever that I didn't cover well, or that you're still confused about, or maybe I didn't even talk about at all, please leave that in the comments down below and I will get back to those as soon as possible. And if need be, I will create another video. And if you use Lightroom and don't have Photoshop, please let me know down below as well so that I can see if I should make a video about how I use Lightroom to make my carousels. Anyway, thank you again so much, and I will catch you again in the next video next Sunday. Peace.